Hey there, gamers. This is Toby from the Secret Levels podcast here. I wanted to tell you about our fundraising campaign we're hosting this year from November 1st to December 31st called Gameboree. Gameboree has been happening for 6 years in support of St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. In total, Gameboree has raised over $11,000. This year, we have some awesome prizes we'll be giving away, and we'll even be doing some special streams over on twitch.tv/TobyVonDoom. For more info on how to donate and when the stream schedules are, please visit badsecretmedia.com/Gameboree. Donate to win some prizes, but also just to help the kids. Donate today and make a difference. badsecretmedia.com/Gameboree. GAMEBOREE.
Welcome back to another side quest episode of the Main Quest podcast. Huge shout out, huge thanks, big thanks to everyone who supports the show in whatever way that you do. Whether it's through the Patreon, through your private messages, word of mouth, all of that stuff. This episode started life as something just for the patrons, but the more I have thought about it, the more that it felt right to release it here as a way to properly wrap up the year. Speaking of which, quick bit of housekeeping before I really get things going. I mentioned at the end of the last episode, the Game of the Year Symposium, that the first ever Game of the Yesteryear discussion was coming up next. And due to some scheduling shenanigans, it just didn't come together, which seems to be my luck this year. So rather than forcing it or dragging it out any further, I decided to shelve that idea for now and move forward. The idea for Game of the Yesteryear is not dead. It just was not the right time for it. Which kind of leads into this episode. Now, I'm certain you guys know that at this point, I really don't have much interest in producing those elaborate and over-the-top Game of the Year episodes that I was known for. It was a massive time sink, and the people that I've had on in the past were pretty much all of the people that I would have wanted on in the first place. I could probably think of a few more people that I would want on, but it wouldn't be enough to justify another massive production, and a lot of those people will more than likely be on the show eventually anyway. But that doesn't mean I won't give you guys a rundown of my year in gaming. What met my expectations, what didn't. If you remember, I did a mid-year episode back in June, and I'm here to report that only one game from June has made it to my final 10. It's been a while since I've done a solo episode here, so this will just kind of be me journaling my thoughts in audio and just talking to you guys about video games in general. But it's business as usual for my Game of the Year episodes. I played 77 games this year, and the genre that I seem to target more than anything were shooters. Now, some of that is due in part to my 2 visits to Galloping Ghost this year, which still wasn't enough visits to get what I wanted to play there. And I think I kind of enjoying shooters now, like on accident. I don't know. I can't really explain why I gravitated towards the genre so much this year. I have no idea if I'm actually any better at them either, but I think the one thing that I enjoy about them overall is just that they all look really f***ing cool. Many of the ones that I played were retro, and so given that the pixel art is absolutely stunning, and then you combine that with how much stuff is going on screen and what the power-ups look like, and then that combines with just how tight the gameplay is. It's not often that when I play a game, I'm moving around and ducking and dodging stuff on the couch along with the ship that I'm playing as. Of the 14 shooters that I played this year, only one is making my list of 10, but I want to give a special shout out here to an IREM game that I played called X Multiply. It's one of the many games that I played at Galloping Ghost, and that cabinet, the physical cabinet itself, is so damn cool. It's just like this like stocky giant white block with like a black and green LED screen, and the entire thing is just, it looks so old. But the game itself fooled me because I thought maybe I was playing, I don't know, some sort of homebrew game or something, because the art design is very H.R. Geiger coded, and the like art design is just, it looks sick as f. It's a cool ass game. But outside of that, there's a review series, like the write-ups that I've been doing and feeding to my patrons throughout the year. I'm making something special up for that for the end of the year, which will hopefully be out by the time this drops. But either way, only one of those games that I made a written review for made my top 10. And while you think my highest scoring game would be seen here, which technically there's a tie. There are two 9 out of 10 score games. So I guess technically my highest score game is on here. The truth is, even though many of those games scored very well, I did give a lot of high scores out actually. They hit different. And I also don't do a write-up for literally everything that I play as much as I would like to. It's just I'm not that good at writing, and also that in of itself is also a time sink, and really who has time to literally criticize everything that they consume? Who? It's not me. Couldn't be me. All right, let's jump into this list. Hey, I mean, most of you should know how my Game of the Year rules work, but if this is your first one, or you've just blacked out from the past couple of years, here's a refresher. These are games that I played for the first time this year. So, if it is a game from 2008, and I finally got around to it in 2025, it's fair game. Now, I do allow some exceptions. If I covered it on the show this year, or if it's been like, I don't know, a decade since I last played it, it can be included on here. There's a little bit of wiggle room. Listen, I know, the rules are controversial, but they're my rules. And since I don't mainline new releases, I don't buy a lot of games that come out in the year that they are released, I feel like this keeps everything a lot more interesting. But I will be starting the list off with a fresh, shiny, brand new 2025 release as an honorable mention. It's a game that I did want on the list until I remembered how many flaws that it has and just how let down I was by it. And that game is Shinobi: Art of Vengeance. So yeah, this game was on my final top 10 list here for quite a while. Like, it survived most of the year at around the 7 or 8 spot. And then just a few days ago, when I was looking over my list here, I took it off. Because the more I sat here and looked at the placement of this game, the more I realized that I was actually just kind of bummed out for most of the time that I spent with it. Now, don't get me wrong. This is a good game. But for me, it is not a Shinobi game. Which is a take that, by the way, got me basically banned from a Sega Discord. Like, that single comment alone, that it's not a Shinobi game, that went off like lighting a match in a gas station. Which I hope all the old Grampies in that Discord server, I hope they don't forget to take their blood pressure meds. There's your reminder. What I wanted in this game, going into it, was like this tough as nails side-scrolling action platformer with brutal levels and a kick-ass Yuzo Koshiro soundtrack. And what I got instead was like the last 10 years of indie game design all stitched together with a soundtrack that feels like it literally belongs in anything else not named Shinobi. Art of Vengeance is Dead Cells and Super Meat Boy with the writing, humor, and voice acting of Hades. The difficulty I was chasing mostly resides in optional challenge rooms, which suddenly feel like I'm playing Celeste or a Hollow Knight boss rush. And to be fair, it does do that stuff well. Sega basically copy and pasted the best parts of modern indie design and built something that is super coherent, loaded with systems, because yes, I guess Joe Musashi needs to have a skill tree because it's 2025 and everything has a skill tree. I got a skill tree. It's just that. That's what it is. And visually, I mean, it's some of the best 2D art that I've seen all year. Not the best 2D art I've seen all year, but pretty damn close. And the level design, it's excellent. It perfectly complements Joe's insanely lenient movement. The combo system here is just fantastic. It's effortless, which makes shredding enemies like feel amazing. But it also makes both boss fights feel absolutely meaningless. Especially when half of them only have like 2 attack patterns and some of them even barely move. And so for every like great thing that I can say about this game, there are 3 things that rub me the wrong way. But the one thing that genuinely made me smile was its absolutely shameless love for the history of Sega. This game is many things, but most of all, it is a love letter to Sega. But still, with all that said, I could not keep it on my list. And it all really comes down to one thing. It's just that I went in expecting one experience and got a completely different one. And I think, in keeping with my lists from previous games, Game of the Year episodes, this would also earn my most disappointing Game of the Year, which Silent Hill F would be in the running for most disappointing Game of the Year for me. But when I really think about it, I didn't have any expectations for Silent Hill F. And so can you be truly disappointed if your expectations were already underground? I mean, I'm out of $70. So I guess somebody's disappointed. Not Konami. And look, I genuinely celebrate what Sega is doing right now with their old IP. They should be bringing these old IPs back. But Shinobi: Art of Vengeance feels like a game that does not have an identity. And I really hope that Sega kind of reins in what made people fall in love with these series, with these IPs in the first place, instead of just chasing trends and, stapling nostalgia on top of it. Okay, let's get into the list proper, and as I go down the list, I will also remind you of either where these games were placed on the list back in June, or what games have replaced those. And so we start here at number 10 with Faith: The Unholy Trinity. we'll just clear the air with this right here. This was the only game that survived the entire year. Back in June, this game was actually sitting at number 9, so it was up one spot. And it ended up bumping Metal Gear on the MSX2 completely off my list. So honestly, this is kind of like a lateral move with a body count. So what do I say about this game that I didn't say back in June? I guess I can just kind of... I guess it's going to be me repeating myself. Yeah, it's kind of came out of nowhere. And I say that because on paper, I looked at it, and I'm like, this thing is using Atari-era graphics. How scary could this game possibly be, right? But the creative use of the limited sound effects, the soundtrack, and sometimes the lack of soundtrack, paired with those visual limitations, forcing your imagination to fill in the blanks, really heightened the tension in a way that I didn't expect, especially as the story unraveled. Well, I'm gonna keep away from spoilers, but really the story basically surrounds the main character who completely botches an entire exorcism. But as far as the gameplay goes, the controls are purposefully limiting because this is supposed to feel like an Atari game. And that definitely makes some of the boss encounters infuriating. But it also leads to some serious butt-clenching moments that, in the end, I actually appreciated. The one thing I didn't love is just how the story is delivered. There's some environmental storytelling, but a lot of it comes through diary entries, some of which are hidden behind very specific conditions and events, which are pretty archaic in their own right. And if you miss them, you get funneled into one of several endings for each chapter and are kind of left trying to piece together what you missed and what you skipped. And that I was pretty frustrated by that. Because I was really invested in the story and I felt like I had massive holes in my understanding that I just couldn't fill in by myself. But that's what YouTube is for, right? That's kind of... Oh, I almost forgot. The rotoscoped cutscenes. You know, if you look up screenshots, if you see screenshots of this game, they really don't do it justice at all. You really have to see them in motion and have that context. They're very eerie. And they're used sparingly enough that when they do show up, it's to great effect. But yeah, Faith is absolutely a game that's going to stay with me for quite a while. And I'm actually, again, this got greenlit for a movie. And I'm pretty optimistic about that movie.
More of this.
You're all going to die, Daddy.
Do your podcast feel underleveled? Sick of content that doesn't overclock your ear holes? Crack open a cold can of Hell Piss Zero Mercy. It might sound like an energy drink, but it's actually the main quest Patreon attacking your nervous system. For less than the cost of a loose copy of Perfect Weapon, you'll get bonus episodes recorded in an abandoned KB Toys. Early access to episodes before you even know you want them. Listen as your host Keith researches and revisits and re-evaluates retro games with a mix of sarcasm, sincerity, and that thing scientists call good podcasting.
No actual scientists are consulted in the making of this podcast. Good podcasting is not a medically recognized condition, and any resemblance to sincere analysis is purely coincidental.
We gave the Main Quest Patreon to a test group. We're still sorting out the consequences.
Ever since I joined the Patreon for the Main Quest podcast, Keith has unleashed the beast in me. Ever since the Primal Rage episode, I now go to random children's birthday parties in an inflatable T-Rex costume to brighten their day. And if a mouse I up here is imam.
The Patreon gave me emotions. I do not want them. Please
kill me.
It's okay to like a video game.
Join now before the algorithm bans it for being too powerful. Link in the show notes. Or scrawl main quest in blood on your nearest Wii U gamepad and whisper Keith 3 times into the mic.
Help-His trademark has not been evaluated, approved, or acknowledged by any real government agency. Side effects may include stick drift, polygonal hallucinations, involuntary bricking, aggressive XP drip, LAN party flashbacks, emotional damage caused by hot takes, spontaneous quick time events, and a strong desire to rank every Gex game. Do not consume if you are pregnant, wear deodorant, or currently dating. Contact Dr. Mario if symptoms persist. May permanently overwrite your taste profile. Void where prohibited.
Moving on to my number 9 game is Titan Souls. And I'm really glad that I got to play Titan Souls again this year. Gave it another run, and for no other reason than it finally gets its proper time on the podcast. And, honestly, might be the entire reason I replayed it in the first place. So the first time I played Titan Souls was back when it released, so, what was that, 2014 or 2015? Yeah, I think that really marked my first real modern PC game that I played. And, man, I remember dumping hours into this game, and not because it's a deep game or anything, it's not. It's actually a pretty shallow game by design. But I kept playing it because of its absolute insane ball-busting difficulty. The entire game is a boss rush. There's no traditional content between fights. There is an overworld to explore, but it mostly leads to finding secrets, usually more bosses, and but the game doesn't hold your hand or tell you where to go. Structurally, it's basically Shadow of the Colossus meets Zelda, which Shadow of the Colossus is also very inspired by Zelda. The entire hook to Titan Souls is that your hero has a single arrow that you can physically recall and reuse. And while it only takes one shot to kill every Titan, they can also kill you in one shot. It is a very simple concept to wrap your brain around. And if any of the games that it's pulling from already tickles you in the right way, you should absolutely give this a shot, no pun intended. The bosses are incredibly unique, and they're not just tests of precision, but often they are full-on puzzles that you have to solve before you can even line up your kill shot. The other massive draw to this game is the soundtrack. It just blankets the pixel-soaked environments with just like this heavy, melancholic, somber tone that really kind of sets the scale of everything. You know, the Shadow of Colossus inspiration runs deep in just how the world is laid out. You know, sprawling fields lead into rivers, rivers lead into forests, and forests into hidden caverns that kind of loop you right back to where you started. Just some very good level design here. Every area is packed with strange landmarks and runes and structures that make you feel like you're trespassing on something sacred. And maybe you are. It's possible. Don't ask me. I don't know what the hell's going on in this game. I don't know what the story is about. They really give you nothing. And honestly, that's kind of something that I like about it. There's a certain mystique to this game that really kind of draws you in. This was also a wonderful playthrough this time around because this was the first time that I unlocked and beat the optional bosses, which somehow weren't as difficult as some of the actually required bosses. But I guess it's probably pretty subjective. But yeah, man, Titan Souls, it's cool as this was Acid Nerve's very first game, and then they went on to make the very popular Death's Door, which I'm pretty sure landed on my year-end list in 2021, I think that's when that came out. But yeah, both games are definitely worth checking out. And Titan Souls is probably dirt cheap at this point. On to number 8, which I didn't plan this. Somehow I've constructed some sort of horror sandwich. I have Faith at 10, Titan Souls here in the middle, and sitting at number 8 is Fear the Spotlight. And I honestly have no idea what originally made me buy this game. It's one of those purchases that I do not remember making. My guess is that it was on deep discount. I grabbed it, and then I completely forgot that it existed, which is what happens 100% of the time when I buy something. Right before this, I had actually been playing Crow Country, as recommended me by a friend of the show, Ryan. And I put a few hours into that game. And while I understand why people love Crow Country, at the moment I just really wasn't feeling it. But it was spooky month, and I wanted to play something spooky. So I just randomly booted up Fear the Spotlight, and it immediately scratched that same early PlayStation polygonal analog horror itch that Crow Country has as well. The game even has these visual filters that you can mess with to fully commit to the bit and really immerse yourself in the glow of a CRT, like straight out of 1996. And at its core, Fear the Spotlight is just a stealth game. You're sneaking through environments, trying not to get caught by the things roaming around and watching you from the deepest, darkest corners of the environment. But it's also very much a survival horror game in structure, because progression isn't just about avoiding enemies. You're also solving environmental puzzles that open up new areas and slowly feed you pieces of the narrative. And man, I was locked into that narrative like nobody's business. Basically, again, without spoilers, the game follows 2 high school girls who break into their school to mess around with a Ouija board. And shock of shocks, things don't go too well for them. So your friend Amy disappears, and as you start to search the school for her, you will unravel the dark history of the high school, what the town has been trying to bury, and my favorite part of the game, dear listener, is just all the petty adolescent high school drama between the students, which I totally bought into it. Which, by the way, Stephanie, what a total. Eric didn't even like her as much as he likes Rachel. Anyway, the horror here is it's all subtle. There's no cheap jump scares. This is just pure atmosphere, just thick with anxiety and darkness, and all of the fear and stuff is just built naturally through anticipation. Every hallway, every shadow, every sound in this game is put there intentionally. And I also have to applaud the developers, which I think, if I'm correct, this was made by either 1 or 2 people, which is crazy to think about, considering how effective it is. But yeah, I mean, congrats to the developers, because this was a game that was published by Blumhouse, which really blindsided me. I completely forgot Blumhouse got into games. But if Fear the Spotlight is any indication of the kind of stuff that they're going to publish, I'm definitely interested in more. When I looked at the official website, there was a game that I saw tied to the people who made Spec Ops: The Line, and then one of the members from 9 Inch Nails. And yeah, that totally seems like that would be my shit. Now, as far as the 8 spot goes here back in June, Steam Hearts was sitting pretty comfortable here at the 8 spot. So Fear the Spotlight came along and took that slot. But now we are sliding up to my number 7 game that I played in 2025, which no longer belongs to Virtua Racing Deluxe. Instead, we've got Final Fantasy VIII. Now I know. The more I play Final Fantasy VIII, the more I find myself placing it amongst my favorite Final Fantasy games. And I'll tell you something right now. You're all aware that I played Final Fantasy IV this year. I covered it on the show. And I'm here to tell you, you will not see it on this list. Go ahead. I hear you picking up your phones, calling the cops. I think they're at my door. Listen, all I'll say is at least Virtua Racing Deluxe isn't on my list anymore, right? Right? Anyway, I completely understand why Final Fantasy VIII is considered the black sheep of the franchise. I just don't agree that it deserves that title. If anything, I think that honor belongs to Final Fantasy II. It doesn't though, because nobody played Final Fantasy II. But people will tell you they played 8, but I'm starting to think that isn't the complete truth. Also, name me one sci-fi property that isn't full of weird, incoherent, plot hole riddled nonsense. You can't. Now the problem with writing a science fiction story is that it is built on inherently shaky foundation because it is asking the reader or the listener or the player to relearn reality every 10 minutes. And the entire point of a sci-fi story is that it needs to be extraordinary. And Final Fantasy VIII is both of those things. It starts out relatively grounded. There's a military academy training elite soldiers called SEED to carry out high-priority missions. And during an operation to undermine Galbadian control in Timber, you'll understand when you play the game, the party discovers that a sorceress is actively working with the Galbadian government as she is appointed as their new ambassador. And then from there, things just get very Final Fantasy. The stakes go from manageable to cosmic very quickly. And just like, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 other Final Fantasy games, there's time travel that gets involved. Because of course it does. That's the franchise. This is the brand. This is what you came for. It's what they do. And this is probably my 5th or 6th full playthrough of Final Fantasy VIII at this point. And so this time I forced myself to use a party that I just normally wouldn't. Which was great because it let me see different dialogue options. It let me see different character interactions. And most importantly, it made me finally appreciate Irvine. I absolutely hated Irvine in every previous run of this game that I've done. And now I realize kind of how important he actually is to the overall story, which, again, is admittedly told very poorly. But I don't know, there's just something to this world, to the world in Final Fantasy VIII and all the world building that really just, it works for me. Especially towards the end of the game when you gain access to Esthar, and then the whole thing with the Lunar Cry happens, the whole setting and everything of the lunatic Pandora. It just fully commits to its sci-fi tone, and the art design and iconography just go absolutely nuts. And it's just the perfect contrast to the earthy, grounded feel of the rest of the game prior to that. Yeah, I mean, I could talk about Final Fantasy VIII forever. And I'm eventually going to do my own full episode on it, years from now probably. But if you feel like hearing me gush about it right now for like 2.5 hours, and you want to hear me shut down all the haters, because you're all haters, you can check out my guest spot, my appearance that I did on the Afterglow podcast, which is something that I will link in the show notes for you. But right now, we're going to move on to number 6.
Same old songs, just once more. My last night here with you. Maybe yes, maybe no. I kind of liked it your way. How you shyly placed your eyes on me. Did you ever know?
trading cosmic witches and teenage soldiers for something a little more timeless. A tale as old as time. Plumbers versus turtles. Because next it's Super Mario World. Yeah, at some point, this game was sitting in my top 3. When I think about it, I mean, it really still kind of deserves to be there more than what I've probably got coming up. But all told, even though this is one of my favorite games of all time, it's not one that I revisit constantly. It's not like Mega Man X or a game that might be showing up later. This one, for me, it's just pure comfort food that just never really gets old. I mean, it's an iconic game. The music is infectious. The gameplay is refined to a point of being effortless. And this game literally had an entire episode dedicated to it just a few weeks ago. So there's really not much I can say here that I didn't say there. And even on that very episode, I was pretty sassy about it because what do you even say about Super Mario World that hasn't been said a billion times already? And so if you're keeping score here, this is also the game that knocked Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Hyperstone Heist off of my Game of the Year list. And as much as I love Hyperstone Heist, looking at this list, it just can't hang. It doesn't hang. There's no room for it here with what I've got coming up. So here we are. This is the top 5. And, we just talked about one of the most timeless games ever made. Let's now talk about a game that feels like it crawled out of the same era. At number 5, I've got Eartheon. Finally, we're getting to a game on my Game of the Year list that actually came out in 2025. Except it looks like it came out in 1995, and in fact, you can literally play it on 1995 hardware, which is pretty cool. This game was actually developed for the Genesis hardware. Eartheon is a shooter that lives and dies by the high-intensity 16-bit shooters of the 90s. The story, very simple. Alien invasion, Earth is under siege. It's about as straightforward as the mechanics go. But what surprised me is just how much meter management is going on under the hood. Everything in this game has a meter. And at first, it feels like a lot is going on. It feels like it's a little bit too much to juggle, but once it clicks, man, it all becomes just second nature and just adds to how hectic and satisfying the flow of the game is. Speaking of hectic, this game is tough. Like, immediately. And I think when I play shooters, like, the one thing that I still struggle with is just how dense the projectile patterns can get. And also keeping, like, just being able to track what's coming at me at any given second. But when I think about it, that's kind of just what the top tier shooters are doing, and Eartheon is really no exception. Thankfully, there are a ton of accessibility options. So if you're you can toggle a couple switches and change some difficulty settings, and you'll be just fine. On top of that, you can load this thing up with scan lines and filters and display frames to really transport yourself back to the back to your grandma's house when you're sitting in the den, playing stuff like this in 1992. Now, ironically, I mentioned Yuzo Koshiro earlier when I was talking about Shinobi: Art of Vengeance. And for that, I am willing to give him a full pardon because clearly all of his energy went into Eartheon. This is an ancient developed game, and as much as Shinobi wants to be a throwback, Eartheon absolutely wipes the floor with it. Like, this is the genuine article. I mean, the soundtrack for this thing it's unbelievable. If I was still doing formal categories, this probably would have been my favorite soundtrack of the year. The entire presentation, the sound, the visuals, pacing, effects, it's flawless. Had this been released in 1992 or 1993 or whatever, it would be one of the shooters that people still point to when they are talking about the Sega Genesis at its peak. Which I guess we can still do that now with just like our tongues firmly planted in our cheeks, right? Oh, and just to close the loop here, Eartheon is what ultimately took the spot that Doom: The Dark Ages had on my list back in June. If you remember that earlier episode, I was actually pretty conflicted about Doom even back then. And I straight up said that it probably wouldn't survive to the end of the year. And yeah, I don't even think about the Dark Ages anymore, both figuratively and literally. So I think it's justified. So Eartheon sent Doom packing, and now Virtua Fighter 2 is the next victim. Sliding into number 4 is Dispatch. Now, I saw Dispatch sitting on the Steam homepage. I checked out a few screenshots and a trailer, and I was immediately hooked. It's got that clean comic book art direction like Invincible, which I'm a fan of. And it mixes that with the grounded but like dysfunctional superhero drama of The Boys, which I'm also a fan of. So there's absolutely no chance that I was going to pass this up, and I jumped in and I was hooked within like the first 10 minutes. So if you're familiar with the Telltale games like The Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us, stuff like that, you already kind of know what you're getting with Dispatch. This is a narrative-driven game where your dialogue choices shape what happens to you next. And the core concept isn't anything wildly original. Like, the story really is just about a former superhero who joins the workforce and takes a job at a dispatch center that sends other superheroes to crime scenes. But what the game does real well, where the real magic is in the contrast. The absolute monotony and bureaucracy of modern work life, and smashing that into the ridiculousness of managing superheroes. And it's something that I found genuinely endearing and surprisingly funny. Which I don't say that very often about games that I play, that they're funny. What the story might lack in high concept uniqueness, it really makes up for with the S-tier writing and characters here. Some of the archetypes are deathly familiar. You've got the leader, you've got the rebel, the mentor, but the way they're written keeps those tropes from feeling flat, and everything feels elevated by the relationships between the characters and the world that they live in. It also helps that the voice cast is absolutely stacked. You've got Aaron Paul, Laura Bailey, Matthew Mercer, Jeffrey Wright, just to name a couple. There's some YouTubers in the cast, I guess. So I guess there's something there for Gen Z. There you go, fellow kids. How do you do? Now, funny enough, the one thing that I do not like about this game is that when it decides that it wants to be a video game. What does that mean? So when the main character, Robert, actually sits down to dispatch heroes, the game suddenly turns into a strategy game. You are matching heroes to jobs based on stats, managing cooldowns, juggling meters, and after every mission you are graded on a performance graph. And if you don't fill it all the way, there's a chance that you will fail the job and your ranking drops and you might even lose a hero. But here's what makes this, like, on paper, that's fine. This is the worst part, is that it doesn't matter how perfectly your hero fits the job. The results are tied to RNG, period. It's all RNG. And in my case, the RNG had it out for me. Completely wrecked my experience. I think I maybe ranked up once the entire game. Like the little ball that bounces back and forth on the meter consistently landed just outside of the percentage zone. Like every time. Every time. And it made me want to throw my controller through the wall. I've never experienced such violent tonal whiplash going from genuinely enjoying a narrative game to getting slammed with absolute every 20 minutes. And within the strategy game itself, there are some mini games also that include hacking, when like Robert has to tap into security cameras or open up locked doors and PCs and stuff like that. Like that stuff is fun, but they don't show up often enough to really offset the frustration that comes with that strategy part of it. But you know what my problem is? Because you can forego all of that. There is a saving grace here. You can actually turn the game parts of the video game off. You could turn the video game off. You could actually turn the video game off, but you can turn the game parts off, literally, and experience Dispatch as if it was just an interactive TV show. And when I think about it, I do want to come back to this game, and I will probably do that someday just to see all of the other endings, because I may have gotten a bad ending. I may have driven somebody into villainy, and I would like to see a better life for them. Maybe I should have done the side mission where I went and got them coffee. Also, Phenomena Man. He's a little... Okay. Anyway, top 3. We're on to the top 3 here. This is where it gets real. In this spot, used to be Power Wash Simulator. It is no longer Power Wash Simulator. I still love Power Wash Simulator. I play it all the time still. It's just not Game of the Year material, in my opinion. And even looking at the lower half of this list, it looked weird. It looked weird. It felt weird. I just couldn't keep Power Wash Simulator on my list anymore. So my new number 3 is Ballistic NG. Ballistic NG? Question mark? Ballistic? I'm going to be honest. I've never heard another human being say the name of this game out loud. I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce it. Is it Ballistic? Ballistic NG? Ballisticking? Ballisticking? I don't know. I don't care. I'm not asking anymore. What I do know is that I love this game. I love this game so much that I ended up doing a full written review for a review. This is it. This is the game. I think that was issue 7 or 8. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'll link that in the show notes as well. And that alone should tell you how hard that this thing hit for me. So this game, it's a racing game, and it is a racing game that has no right being as good as it is. I poured an irresponsible number of hours into it, probably more than anybody reasonably should. And that's not just because it feels and looks like a modern Wipeout or F-Zero. It's also because this game has a metric shit ton of community and mod support for it. There is, speaking of F-Zero, there's literally a Blue Falcon mod that straight up breaks the game in like the best way. But even if we're just talking about the vanilla game, the tracks that come with the game are already really incredible. You've got stuff like high-speed runs through these like cyber dystopian cities, long stretches of neon tracks in outer space with earth kind of hanging around in the background to these visually monotone tracks. Like they're black and white, but they're like wrapped in environments with such insane scale that like somehow they make you feel very tiny. I don't know how else to describe it. Like the game, some of it sometimes it's just abstract as hell, but it takes all of that chaos and molds it into something that's like incredibly approachable. And the one thing, which I guess has been the running theme with a lot of my favorite games this year, is again the accessibility, which is great. You can get absolutely lost in the menus just tweaking the game to your exact play style. Speed, handling, assists, difficulty, anything you can think of, it's adjustable. And because this is a modern, quote-unquote, I like to call them retro-likes, because this is a retro-like game, of course you get all of those gritty CRT scanline filters so you can pretend you're playing on an old dusty CRT from 1997. But I'll leave it at this. I mean, I cannot recommend this game enough if you are into F-Zero and Wipeout, or just want a ridiculously cool racing game that you can sink dozens and dozens of hours without even realizing it. But yeah, if you want a deeper dive, I will have a link to my written review on this in the show notes. I probably could have just read that verbatim here, but I don't know. I gotta give you something a little bit special here. Right? I thought a lot about the placement of these next two games. Sitting here at the number 2 spot is a game that took this position from X-Zodiac. X-Zodiac had the number 2 spot back in June. And literally up until a few days ago, this was actually my number 1 game. The game I'm about to talk about at the number 2 spot was my game of the year for a very long time. But then I started thinking about what that actually means to me. And honestly, a lot of that came from the conversation that I just had earlier this month with the boys, Eric, Matt, Phil, and Cade. And, what is my game of the year? What is my game of the year? What does that title actually represent for me? Because these top 2 spots are games that mean something. Especially Super Metroid, which is my number 2. So what I was really asking myself was this: am I giving my game of the year to one of the most important games of my life? Or am I giving it to the game that's had complete ownership of my brain this year? Super Metroid is a shining example of why I play video games. It doesn't just have legacy in the medium, it has legacy in my life. And so giving it a preordained victory here in 2025 made a lot of sense to me at first. I have endless respect for what this game is. I literally just did a 3-hour episode on it. I will defend it to death, and I have. And it is like an untouchable elder god of video games that I hold in very high regard. But my game of the year list, my top 10, it isn't about history. It's not about legacy. It's not about the best games of all time. It's about the year I lived. It is a time capsule. And I just can't give Super Metroid the number 1 spot because it already won the past 30 years. It's always been there. It'll always be there. And I'll always come back to it. And I think in a funny way, that actually gives my number one game much more meaning, because my number one game is a product of the here and now, right? It's something I have no idea will be part of my future, but right now, it is consuming me. That's what matters right now. That's what matters in 2025. Super Metroid, incredible game. It was in 1994. It still is now, no matter what Matt and Chris have to say. So it takes my number 2 spot. And yeah, of course, I'm going to have a link to that very episode in the show notes in case you missed it. For most of the year, I had no idea what my number 1 was going to be. For a while, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time 3D was keeping that throne warm. That's not a spot you're going to casually replace. But a game did come along, something took that crown, and as it placed the crown on its head, there was a side effect in it, and it started farting and pissing everywhere. That game is The Binding of Isaac: Repentance. It's my game of the year. I bought this game a few years ago, and like many impulse buys, I let it rot in my library with all the other unplayed stuff, which is actually incredibly fitting for a game about neglect and abandonment. So, it wasn't until I did my boyfriend dungeon episode earlier this year with a friend of the show, Tony G, that it really clicked for me. You know, talking with him about how much he loves The Binding of Isaac, like it hit me. It hit me, and I realized, I'm like, oh man, I own this game. And I just haven't played it. And I don't remember if this came up on mic or just off air, but I remember saying I only bought it because Repentance was the complete edition. Every DLC, everything included, and it was on deep discount. And through sheer cultural osmosis, I knew it was considered one of the best roguelikes ever made. But, I mean, call it shallow. The thing that kept me away from it for years was just the art direction, because it reminded me of all those it reminded me of those worst shitty Newgrounds Flash games. And yeah, technically that's exactly what it is. Even right down to the tone of the game. I mean, I set it up earlier. Poop jokes, fart jokes, cute chibi characters doing grotesque violent things like Happy Treehouse Friends, right? Like, all that stuff peaked in, 2007. And so by the time that this game came out in 2014, at its peak, that whole thing, that whole attitude just felt really dumb to me. But the word of mouth, the low price, and Tony G gushing about it really kind of pushed me over the edge here. And everything that I just said, everything I thought this game would be, it be like that. It's crude, it's immature, it looks cheap, but none of that really matters because the gameplay absolutely trumps all of that. And I'm willing to bet that I've already put close to 70 hours into this game, and I don't think I've even seen half of what it has to offer. And I know that for a fact because Tony and I still talk about the game casually, and he just openly mocks me. He openly mocks my progress, or lack thereof. This is also a man by the way, who has earned all 620 trophies on Steam. So, I mean, he has completely my sense of scale when it comes to this game. So, I mean, what makes this game endlessly replayable is that, this is the complete version. Rebirth alone, which is the original game, is very dense. But then you add 3 or 4 absolutely girthy DLC expansions on top of that, and you're almost certain to never have the same experience twice. Gameplay-wise, I mean, structurally, it's a roguelike. You're dumped into an ever-changing map. You collect items that build your character. Sometimes those items synergize in broken but beautiful ways, and you stack temporary buffs, and you try to make it to the end of the game. Which is something that I've only done like 8 or 9 times. This game, it's brutal. It's very, very, very hard. And admittedly, I struggled on the lowest difficulty, which is normal. But then Tony was like, stop being a play that on hard because you unlock things much faster if you do. Unfortunately, he was right. It hasn't gotten easier, but I have gotten better. And I genuinely think that now if I drop the game back down to normal, I would probably be winning almost every single run. Now, is this game perfect? No. There are things that I do not like. So those one-time use pills that buff your character, well, the game never tells you what they do. Every time you pick something up, there's always a question mark until you take the pills. Sometimes it's a buff. Sometimes it completely messes up your entire run. And you don't know. You don't know until it's too late. And every single run resets your knowledge of that pill. And you're probably sitting there like, Keith, just ignore the pills. Don't take the pills. But how? It could be something that I need. It could be a vital buff that I need. How do I know if I don't take it? I mean, honestly, I can't be that mad. I've not succumbed, but I've embraced the pills. Every time I see a pill, I take it now. I take every pill now, and I suffer the consequences like an adult. Speaking of things that you can clip and take out of context, I hate the poop and the spiders. If there's poop and spiders in a room, I am guaranteed to take a hit. Their movement feels like it's not RNG, but boy, does it feel like RNG. Like and those things, they show up in swarms. And they're most common in the first area of the game, which is the absolute worst time for that to happen. Because you're underpowered, you're slow, broke, and Isaac is emotionally fragile. This is starting to sound like a review. A full-on review of the game, and that's not what this is. This is supposed to be Game of the Year. The reason why Binding of Isaac is my Game of the Year is it's simple. It has everything that I would want out of a roguelike. When you finally hit a run where your build comes together and nothing can stop you anymore, that feeling is unreal. You're chasing that dragon every single run. And I've had a few of those runs where I get to the final boss and I just melt that health bar away in seconds. The dopamine is insane. That dopamine hit is And most of the time, that doesn't happen because the game is very cruel. But even when you get a bad run, you are still getting better at the game. You feel progress. And even when a run dies early, that one more run mentality is still there. It's just there in a different way. And I can't even begin to tell you how absurdly deep this game's item pool is. The amount of weapons, passives, effects, and synergies is just mind-breaking. I genuinely do not know how one human being even thought of half of the stuff that is in this game. And the one thing I really, really appreciate is just how every weapon that you add to your arsenal physically changes how your character looks, which I'm sure has made Edmund McMillan an absolute fortune in merch. And I keep on just saying character in general. While Isaac is the default character, you unlock a whole bunch of other ones, each with their own starting gimmicks, stats, and items, and rules, and whatever. Isaac is just the vanilla baseline character that you start with. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say without this just kind of being a full-on episode. You know, I'm obsessed with this game, and that's why it's my number one. That's why it's my game of the year. It doesn't have the legacy of Super Metroid. It doesn't have the weight of my childhood behind it, but right now, it owns me. Because when I'm not playing it, I'm thinking about playing it. And that's what game of the year means to me. It's another year here where my game of the year, it's just a good ass video game. It's just real good. You should go play it. And yeah, maybe in 2026, I'll have Tony G back and we can talk about this one in a more formal setting. As formal as it gets, talking about bloody poop and pissing your pants. Before I send you off into the night and we officially close the book on 2025, I do want to shout out a handful of games that have been sitting in my backlog for far too long. Every year I like to write down a little list of games that I finally want to get to, and hope that one of them might end up right back here this time next year. And so this year's list is Kingdom Hearts 2, Hitman 2, the 2018 game, Chrono Cross, Crow Country, which I mentioned earlier. I mentioned earlier that I bounced off of this one. I'm not going to let it get away. I do want to return to this game and meet it on its own term without really forcing myself to replay it. So yes, Crow Country, Sonic Advance, a good Sonic game, apparently. I think that's what they say about all of them. Castlevania, Rondo of Blood, kind of continuing my series playthrough there. Titanfall 2, and Prey, the 2017 release. Now that list alone, it's kind of a big list, a lot of big games in that one, but it's enough to make me excited about what is coming up next. But that's future Keith's problem now. And I mean, who knows? Who knows what is even coming out in 2026? Like really, everything gets delayed now. So, but that's 2025. So yeah, I mean, what do I say here at the end of the year? It's my first full year back. Feels like I never left. But I also know I still have a lot of ground to cover. And with all the support you guys have been showing me, all of the incredibly kind things that have been said, I feel more confident than ever with this show. And I wish I could put out even more stuff for you to enjoy. Like, the ideas never really stop. I never stop creating things in my head. But instead of being compulsive and acting on everything immediately, I have been better about just letting things go. Or not even letting things go, but just like letting things sit, planning them out, actually letting them cook, as the kids would say, so I can make stuff that is more worthwhile. Like I said, I have a very creative brain. It's going a mile a minute. And I genuinely just have not stopped thinking of ways of making things interesting for you. And someday, I do hope I can get back to weekly episodes, but until then, the schedule is just, it's more or less going to stay the same. Speaking of schedules, you may have noticed I haven't put one out in a while, and I don't think I'm going to anymore. You know, I'll mostly blame the holidays for being part of it, you know, but the past couple of months, it's just been really hard to line people up and just get firm commitments from guests. If I can't commit to a release schedule, then I'm not going to pretend that I can. You'll get episodes. You will get them when you get them. And I need you guys to know that. I'm not going away. Other than that, I'm really looking forward to what is coming in 2026. There is a new Resident Evil game coming, so there will be a new Resident Evil episode on the horizon. I'm also planning another series breakdown covering the Remedyverse, or whatever that whole thing is called now. All the stuff that has Max Payne and Control and even Alan Wake. I do not like that first Alan Wake game. I haven't played the second one yet. But anyway, I'll be recording that stuff. I don't know how much of it will actually release next year, but I will be deep in it. I will be working on it. And if Solid Boys returns, great. But if it doesn't, I'm thinking about teaming up with one of those folks for something incredibly sultry and seductive, but I don't want to talk about that quite yet. I'm hoping it's something that couples can listen to if they're in a sexless marriage, you know, something to reignite the flames, get you a little closer. Anyway, of course, Player vs. Podcast is about 4 months out at this point, and voting for that is going to begin very shortly. And then, of course, the Super Nintendo coverage keeps rolling. And there's going to be another Ghoulcade. And all of that. It's happening. Podcasting is happening. And it's happening because of you guys. So, thank you. I really, really do want to thank you. And thank you for all of your support. And I hope you and yours have an absolutely fantastic holiday. Have a fantastic and safe New Year. And always remember, it's okay to like a video game.